right. Welcome back to ArcheTAP. It is 2:22. We love an angel number. Earlier I looked at the clock and it was 5:55 on 2:22. That felt special. We are talking about the tower tonight, which is card number 16 in the major arcana. It looks like this guy. We'll go over the symbols in 2 seconds, but it's probably one of the cards that you're the least stoked to get if you're getting a tarot reading. There's of the last two that we've done of the three, like all of them, the devil, death, like no one really wants those, um, along with this one. So it's kind of exciting to me to talk about the ones and like reframe them, in a different way so that they aren't so scary. Some of the key words associated with the Tower card are sudden collapse, destruction, flashes of enlightenment, and the best one being set free, freedom. And really we're going to really anchor this whole class around feelings of victimization and freedom. The two are like opposite sides of a coin. So let's look at the symbols that we have in here. So we've got this lightning bolt that is striking the tower. There's a crown falling off to the side. We've got these two figures that have jumped ship out the window because the whole thing is on fire. We've got water down, but actually, I could have sworn there was water, but actually, now that I'm looking at this, or maybe that's what's in the background here. It's like this is on the edge of a cliff, almost like a lighthouse type thing. The tower itself is our beliefs. It's errors in thinking that we've held on to for a really long time. The two guys that are falling out here, one of them is how we can be self-conscious, and one of them is our subconscious and how that can block us and prevent us from seeing correctly, really. That lightning bolt is our super consciousness. It's the flash of insight that's coming in to destroy all of the errors that have been living by. And none of it's our fault. Like, it's designed that way. Fire, it's a clean burn. It's Mother Nature pulling the herd, so to speak. And this crown that's flying off the top of this tower is authority, and it's the overthrow of the existing power, right? So if we've been living in denial or living in stories that are no longer serving us, anything like that, like it's got to go. If those things were an authority in our life and that's how we made decisions, like it's time for it to change. And then rough seas, it's like, we'll get into this. This card lives in the emotional solar plexus. It's tumultuous emotions and how we perceive them, and often how we try to figure them out, where they come from, why we feel the way that we do, when often it has nothing to do with us, but it feels personal because it's your body, right? It's feeling sensations. And I was listening to Rick Rubin has a podcast called Tetragrammaton. I might be missaying that. And he is good friends with Richard Rudd, who wrote the Gene Keys. And so he had him on his podcast maybe a week or two ago. It's like almost a 4-hour long podcast. It's taken me several days to listen to all of it, but it's been really fun to listen to their conversation because Rick is all about creativity. It's in his Gene Keys chart. And then Richard Rudd is a poet, and just the way that he speaks is so incredible. So I'm listening to this podcast this week, and he explains that the Gene Keys are grouped into what he calls codon rings. And there are 22 codon rings that are directly associated with the major arcana of the tarot and the Hebrew alphabet. All of them are basically saying the same thing, Richard Rudd hasn't released any of this information yet, but and when you go to the Gene Keys website, if you go to the codon rings section of it, he's got like a little YouTube video where he basically talks about how he's not ready to release this information yet. He's still contemplating it. He's still kind of writing all of it. I think the Gene Keys book took him 7 or 8 years to write. And this is a much more kind of advanced level. But codons start and stop our DNA. They help us synthesize proteins. And so there's this moment in the podcast where Rick Rubin kind of is like, oh, fuck, we're all talking about the same thing. It's just a different language that we're using to describe it. And so very specifically, the tower card is the only one that he gave away. And all of this was so synchronistic to me that I just was kind of on cloud 9 about it, because I was listening to this podcast, and on Tuesday we moved into Gene Key 55, which lives in the emotional solar plexus. She is a moody little bitch, and she is what makes up this codon of the tower. It's 55 and 49, and they both live in the solar plexus. And so we're in 55 right now. We're on day 4 of it, and we're studying this tonight. I don't know. It just felt like too much alignment. It was too, and I don't even know if that makes sense to you guys, but it was just like it's not a coincidence that this is happening in this way. So we're really going to get more into the gene keys a little bit. I cannot recommend enough, even if you're not super into the gene keys, the chapter on 55 specifically really talks about the evolution of our species. It's kind of prophetic in nature. He goes into talking about, where did I write it? Anyway, he talks about the future of medicine. He talks about the future of the human body. He talks about children's education, where we're going with technology. And of course, this is all kind of what he thinks is going to happen, and like the downloads that he's receiving, what's going to happen to the world, how we talk about global warming, like all of that. He really covers all of it. What's going to happen with the military and the governments in our world? What's going to happen with money? It is fascinating, and it's very encouraging. So, and to me, I cannot recommend enough. If you use Spotify, the whole audiobook is on Spotify, the Gene Keys book. And I will mention that the labels of the chapters are off. So you do kind of have to listen to the beginning of the chapter and kind of catch which one it's in. But I cannot recommend that enough. I really can't. Just for where we're headed, he explains science like a poet would. And that it's so beautiful. So I know I kind of just had a little tangent there, but it's important for where we're going in this class. So the codon ring that 55 and 49 are in is called the codon ring of the whirlwind, which makes sense too when you look at this card, right? It's like whirlwind brings sudden change. It's associated with specifically the amino acid histidine. Histidine turns into histamines in our body, which directly help us in our immune system responses. They help maintain the pH of our body, especially our blood. They act as antioxidants by neutralizing free radicals, and they help tissues grow and repair because they're synthesizing proteins. This is really important to consider. I've been like considering this all week long of like what this means. And I don't even know that I definitely don't fully understand what it means. But when we talk about talking to our DNA, that's what we're talking to. It's like we're talking literally to the tiny makeup parts of our DNA and these tiny codons that stop and start different functions in the body. And this really, to me, brings home the point of like, as above, so below. Like everything that's happening on a macro level is happening inside our bodies at a micro level. What else did I say? Look, I said emotional solar plexus, which is really, for as little as we know about this kind of bundle of nerves, which is shocking. Science calls it the second brain. It's probably our first brain, really. It's way more powerful if you think about it in terms of the voltage that emotions create inside of our system. Our brain can't do that, you know, but you feel it inside your body when you have an emotion, when you have, you know, that creates physical sensations, whether you're picking up your own or someone else's. So I found all of that very fascinating, and it got me really excited. Backing up more on that tangent, what they're basically saying too is that in 2027, our genetic matrix is going to start to shift, and we're going, like, he's really suggesting that we're going to have the children that are born after 2027 will never have a lovability problem. And because they get oneness, they can feel it, whereas we really can't. And he's suggesting that basically the errors in our own matrix that are causing some of these problems that we have were obviously designed by nature for a certain reason, but they're basically going to get bred out of us. A whole new kind of human being is coming forward. It's going to take hundreds of years, but which is a blip in time, really, but we won't be around to see it necessarily. So, okay. The tower is also called the house of God. It represents the divine strike that destroys the ego's illusions. So it's dissolving them into a really deep clarity. This is the archetype of human ignorance. This is the human archetype of errors of thinking, of the structures that we build to hide in or defend ourselves from our deepest essence, really. If the energy of this archetype is blocked, a person can really easily be angered. They can become hostile and resentful. The block can be created by an inability to adapt to change, to adapt to new conditions. I think that that's why this card is so scary when it comes in a reading, because by nature, most of us really fucking hate change. We're really afraid of it, even though in hindsight, we can often see X, Y, and Z needed to happen so that this could happen. We just really cling to the familiar. So yeah, change can be super frightening. Absolutely. But I don't think it's supposed to be. I think somehow we got conditioned to feel that way, you know? But also we're attached. We're attached to the things that we love. So very sensitive types of people can really take on the pain and suffering of the world. And it's really a misuse of empathy. And probably if those people could come to grips with and recognize that if it feels like shit, you're thinking about it wrong, then that would probably help. But that kind of empathy, that overloaded by like, oh my God, the world's at war and things are going down the shitter, and it'll shut down your creative flow for sure. So this shadow programs all human beings at a cellular level. It ensures that every individual is their own worst enemy. So we all do this. Every single person on the planet does this. And we need an attitude adjustment, really. There are really only two parts to the concept of attitude. You either behave like you're a victim of circumstance, or you take full responsibility for your situation. It's really the only way that it can go. It sounds really simple, but obviously there are like layers and layers and layers of complexity to this. And so first, let's talk about what happens when you play the victim role. This is about emotions, and at a low frequency, when we as humans look outside of ourselves for when we experience an emotional high, right? Or a low, we look for a reason of why we feel X, Y, and Z, almost always. I know for sure I do if I'm having a negative feeling. I'm always trying to figure out what the fuck the cause was and blame it on, it's the meal I just ate. It's the shitty sleep I had the night before. It's the, whatever. Always. I'm trying to, and it's really hard for me to let that go. I'm very addicted to problem solving my feelings. And on the high end, we believe that joy is an effect rather than a cause. So something caused me to feel joy, and now I'm going to grip it with my tight fist and never let it go. Instead of recognizing that these things rise and fall in a rhythm that is set by nature. We chase whatever we think is going to cause us joy, whether it's the perfect relationship, whether it's lots of money, fame, the perfect place to live, the perfect job, the savings account, whatever, like anything that we think is going to make us feel better, we cling to it. And then, of course, at the low end of this emotional spectrum, the game we play is the victim game. We blame anything, like I just said, from food to our partners, to the government, to religion, to our parents. We look for a reason to blame for the reason that we feel bad. It's the greatest addiction on the planet, the blame game, in hopes to understand what is causing our moods. We get caught in this web that we made. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, like, what traps us the most is our longing. When we're down, we want to get high. And if we're high, we're flying high on that disc. We want to grip it and pry it out of my cold, dead hands. So, what is going to pull us out of this addiction? The frequency that pulls you out of this addiction is understanding. Understanding has to kind of just come. You can't force it. It has to dawn on you like this lightning bolt. I lost my place. So sorry. We become a victim of our unconscious belief patterns. I think I keep threatening to do this, but I think something that could be incredibly helpful for people is to literally sit down and take 3 to 5 of the biggest stories that they tell about their life and sit down and rewrite them from a different perspective, from a different angle, and start to live that way, because otherwise we're really addicted to the drama. So we don't understand the emotional brain. No one taught us this, which is really unfortunate that we don't have more knowledge about how emotions work. And they get downplayed so much in our dominant culture, right? I mean, I think we're talking about it more and more all the time, but we've got this massive nerve bundle in the gut that should be probably called the first brain, and it operates completely independently from the brain in our skull. Like I said earlier, the sheer voltage of emotions, particularly at the highs and the lows, far outweighs any cognitive process that we have. Which I think is probably why we hold cognitive processes in such high regard, especially because we live in such a patriarchal society, and men were definitely taught to shut that shit down. So, which is unfortunate. So despite our best efforts, our emotions have more power than our minds do. They dictate. So how do we wake up? None of us are immune to this. We all kind of live dramatically, even though we don't want to admit it. While we're waiting for 2027 to come and for our species to evolve, like, what do we do in the meantime, right? We can take certain actions. We can work on forgiveness from a radical point of view, which starts to tell the story of how we came here and set ourselves up to have certain experiences. And if that's true, then we can never really be the victim of anything. Which, if I know some of you know, but if you've never seen this book, Radical Forgiveness, I can't recommend it enough. It's got exercises and worksheets in it that help you take some of those stories and transform them. It's a technology all in itself. We can forgive ourselves. We can learn to feel our feelings and let them move through us without trying to figure out where it came from or why, by labeling and searching. Because the raw energy of our emotions becomes this unfurling of our future awareness. So when we get to the meditation later, we're going to use the archetype of the dragonfly. The dragonfly lives underwater. It like has a nymph for the first few years of its life. And then one day it just hops out, walks up a plant and starts to dry off, but it's been in water this whole time, but it's becoming this whole new thing. And it uses the water that's in its body to unfurl its wings. So that's kind of where that imagery comes from. And I liked that so much that that's who we're talking to tonight. So once you start to understand, you get a little bit of clarity, you become more aware. Once awareness is born, your life moves up. It really is that simple. But it is a choice. And I think that that's the hardest part to understand too, is like once you become aware, you have a choice. So, any questions about any of that? Whoops. Okay, we're going to do some tapping on the tower. Sitting up tall if you're seated. Take a couple big deep breaths. And we'll start tapping on the side of the hand. Repeating after me. Sometimes I am my own worst enemy. I am carrying around a lot of stories. All of these stories confirm my pain. I feel victimized by life. So I play the complain and blame game. I pin my pain on someone else. It's really very clever of me. Because my blaming and complaining ensures that the drama can continue. But I am ready for a change. I know these stories need to shift and change. I want to be free. Free from feeling like a victim. A victim of my childhood, a victim of my relationships, my job, the world. Everyone wants freedom. We can call it whatever we want. Money, recognition, happiness, love. I think those things will make me feel free. So even though I've been playing the victim in my life, blaming and complaining. I choose to deeply and completely love, honor, and accept myself. Okay, top of the head. All this complaining, all this blame, all my victim stories. I'm this way because X, Y, and Z happened. All this suffering. I want to be free. So I am clearing on a DNA level all of my reactions to life. My expectations, my reactions. I'm throwing out all these old genetic patterns. I'm starting a revolution. I choose to live well. I choose freedom. So I'm rewriting my life stories. And I'm taking full responsibility. Of my precious, beautiful life. I choose deep compassion for myself and others. I choose forgiveness. I choose to expand and to be a part of the evolution. I'm allowing myself to be. Just as I am. And if the way that I am changes, I'm going to let it change. I choose to be the way nature intended. I choose to be free in body, mind, and spirit. Okay. Take a sip of water. Find your seat again. If you started to slouch or anything, or if you want to lay down, now is the time. And if it feels safe to do so, go ahead and close your eyes. Start to just notice your breath without changing it. Just notice the qualities of it. Is it deep? Is it shallow? Is it smooth? Is it ragged? And we'll take a few breaths together. So on your next exhale, pause. And then inhale through your nose for 3, 2, 1. Hold. Exhale through your nose for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause. Inhale through your nose for 3, 2, 1. Hold. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. Exhale 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause. Last one. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold. Exhale for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press any last remaining bits of air out of the bottom of your lungs. Then big, deep belly breath in through the nose. Open your mouth and let it go. One more like that. Big, deep belly breath in. Audible exhale. Seal your lips back off. Find a breath that just feels comfortable. With each exhale, you feel tension leave your body. With each breath, your body relaxes more and your mind becomes clearer. Imagine yourself standing in a lush, vibrant field of flowers. The sun is warm on your skin, and there's a gentle breeze carrying the fragrance of these flowers to you. Turn around in a circle where you're standing, looking in all directions. It's just flowers as far as you can see. Now turn the color up on them. This field is vast and beautiful. It's filled with your favorite flowers. There's a path that opens up in front of you through them. You begin to walk through the field. Notice the colors and the shapes of the flowers around you, and turn them up even more. Feel the softness of the earth under your feet. Hear the distant sound of waves crashing against the cliffs. You're walking towards this sound. As you move forward, the path leads you to a magnificent tower. This tower stands on the edge of a cliff overlooking the sea. It's a structure of your own design. It represents your journey towards change and transformation. As you approach it, you find a staircase that winds up the tower. As you start to walk up the staircase, every step upward, you feel lighter. Every step upward, you shed a layer of doubt. With every step, you release a little more fear. With every step, you let go of any resistance that's holding you back. Reaching the top of the tower, you step onto a platform that offers a breathtaking view of the ocean below. The horizon is endless. You recognize that the vastness of what you're seeing in front of you represents the boundless possibilities that are within your own life. You see flying towards you the archetype of change, the dragonfly. Its wings shimmer in the sunlight. It's reflecting so many colors. It's flitting about. You're watching it move fluidly and gracefully. And then it sort of pauses in front of you, hovering the way that they do. And it invites you to engage in conversation. You're aware that this is a sacred moment. You ask the dragonfly, what areas of my life feel uninspired and rigid? Where do I play the victim the most? What do I complain about the most? You listen to this feedback with zero judgment. Where am I my own worst enemy? What do I need to understand so that I can create more freedom for myself? How can I create more freedom for myself? As you have this conversation, you feel inspired. You're making a choice to step into the role of the creator of your own experience. As the dragonfly answers your questions, allow its wisdom to permeate your being. Here atop this tower, you are free to stay in this meditative space for as long as you wish. If you have other questions for the dragonfly, anything about embracing the possibilities of change, now is your time. When you're ready to leave, remember to thank him for their guidance and wisdom, and then make your way back down the staircase, feeling grounded, centered with each step. Carry all the insights you received with you. I will see you guys next week.